Hi everyone. So a few days ago I saw someone talking about how to model a flower pot like this, and they were especially interested in how to model the vertical ridges, so I thought I would make a tutorial about it. Now I've got two flower pots on here, but we're only going to model this one on the right. In this one we actually model the ridges. This is a very high poly model. It has over 140,000 faces. Now this one on the left is an example of using a normal map. If we go into solid view, you can see that it doesn't actually have any ridges. This model has only around 7,000 faces, which is still kind of high poly, but not nearly as high poly as the one on the right. So we won't be modeling the one on the left in this video, but I just wanted you to know that you don't always have to model the details. You can also use normal maps or bump maps to create the details in your model. There are situations where you might use the low poly model with a normal map, and there are situations where it might be better to use the high poly model. Before we dive into the modeling process, I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, I'm not the world's best modeler, so there is probably a better way to model this flower pot than I'm going to show you in this tutorial, but this is my best attempt at modeling something like this. Second, a lot of trial and error went into making this tutorial. In other words, I tried out a lot of things before I settled on what we're going to do in the tutorial. So I didn't just look at the picture of the flower pot and immediately know the best way to model it, and I just wanted to be clear about that. Okay, having said all of that, let's go ahead and get started. And we'll start off by creating a new file, and we'll delete the default cube, of course. And before we actually start modeling, I want to change the units. So we're going to be making this flower pot 15 centimeters across, 15 centimeters in diameter. And Blender is set up to use meters by default. You could work in meters and just, you'd have to constantly be changing the size from meters down to centimeters. But what we're going to do instead is change the units. So come here to the Scene tab, click on Units, change the length from meters to centimeters, and change the unit scale from 1. But if you don't change the unit scale, you just change the length and you go to add, say, a plane. That plane comes in at 200 centimeters. Okay, that's not what we want. It's still 2 meters, but now it's just giving it to us in centimeters. That's not what we want. We don't want to make these giant objects. So for that reason, we're going to change the unit scale from 1 to 0.01 because centimeters are 1/100th of a meter. Okay, when we do that, you can notice that it looks like our grid disappears. It's really still there. We're just zoomed way in. Okay, so our grid is there, and let me change our clipping. So whenever you see things starting to disappear like that, that means that your clipping is being activated. So I'm going to change this to 100,000 centimeters. Okay, so now you can see all the way out there. But this is our grid. It's still there. It's just set up for meters. It's really big. Because of that, what we need to do is come up here to the Overlays drop down, and there's a scale up here as well. It's a scale for the grid. Click on that and change it to 0.01, and we get our smaller grid comes back. Okay, so now the grid is in centimeters. All right, and so now that we've got our units set up, now we're ready to start modeling. All right, and before we go on, I'm going to turn on my screencast keys here so you can see the keys that I'm pressing. Now it doesn't show everything that I press. I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to add in a plane. I'm going to press R to rotate. It's showing you the R. But if I press X to rotate on the X axis, it doesn't show you that. Okay, if I type in 90 for the degrees, it didn't show you that either. Okay, so it doesn't show you everything, and for that reason, I'm going to continue calling out the buttons and keys that I press, but this will give you some extra visual confirmation of what I'm pressing. Okay. All right, we're going to go into the top viewport, so I'm going to press 7 for that, and we're going to model the ridge. That's what we're going to start off doing. We're going to add in a circle, and we want that circle to have 16 vertices. All right, 1 centimeter is fine, and we'll just press the period key to zoom in. All right, let's go into, we'll go into edit mode and vertex select mode. Let's select the bottom vertices here and delete them. And then we'll go back out into object mode and we'll add another circle. This time still with 16 vertices, but we're going to make it 0.25 centimeters. Okay, so a much smaller circle. We'll go into edit mode again, and this time we'll delete the upper vertices. All right, and back into object mode, and we're going to drag this over here, and we're going to press Shift D to duplicate it and drag the duplicate over here. Up here we're going to turn on snap, and we'll set that to vertex, and we'll come here and grab that and snap it to that vertex, and then we'll click on this one and snap it to that vertex. Okay, select all three of these objects and press Ctrl J to join them. Go into edit mode again and select all with A, go to mesh and merge by distance, and it's removed 2 extra vertices. So there was extra vertex here and extra vertex here. Now we need to delete, we want this pattern to repeat, and so we need to delete this part here we don't need. So these 4 vertices on this end, delete those, and delete these 4 on this end. Okay, and we can see that the origin of our shape has changed over here. Let's go to object and set origin to 3D cursor. Okay, so I'll put that back in the center. So this is a ridge, and on each side of the ridge we've got half of a groove. So now this is a repeatable pattern for us. We're going to back out a little bit, go back into edit mode, grab these 2 outer vertices here, and E to extrude, and Y to constrain ourselves to the Y axis, and we're going to pull down to about here. Okay, so this next major grid section here, press F to fill, and that'll connect those, and then hover over that line, press Ctrl R, and let's give that like 5 sections there. So press 5 and hit enter, and then hit escape or right click. Okay, and then let's hit all to select everything and press F to fill. That'll put a face in there, a giant N-gon. All right, now let's select these bottom vertices and E to extrude, and pull, press Y to constrain to the Y axis, and pull them down about two more big sections here. Okay, all right, let's roll around to perspective mode here. Come to the overlay drop down, and let's turn on face orientation. You can see that it's red. We want it to be blue, so go into edit mode, select everything, and press Shift N. Nope, that didn't work. Okay, so let's go to mesh, normals, and flip. Okay, make sure you had everything selected when you did that. Okay, now let's go to face select mode, and make sure you've got everything selected. Hit E to extrude and press 2. Okay, so this should make it 2 units tall. And then let's select these faces. On each side there are 2 faces. Press D to delete the faces. All right. And let's go into edge select mode. Double click to select all of those edges. Hold down Shift and double click to select all of those edges. Now this is actually going to be the top of our vase. This is going to be the bottom, and this is going to be the top of the inside of our vase. So hold down Shift and double click on this, and you'll get those edges as well. So if we don't do this now, we're going to bevel this now. So hit Ctrl B and pull out to bevel, and let's set that maybe to 0.25 for the width, and the number of segments, let's set that to 3. Okay. Now if we don't bevel now, it will become difficult to bevel later, at least on these edges here, because we're going to array out these sections, and when we try to double click to select the edge loop going all the way around, it will just stop at that section. So it just becomes difficult to select everything. That's why we're beveling here. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. I'll Control Z back. Don't follow this part. Okay, I'm going to add an array modifier, which we will also do later. We'll say we'll make it like 3. I'll click on merge because we'll be doing that, and then I'll apply it. Okay, don't follow along. I'll go into edit mode and I'll double click to select everything along this edge, but you can see it stops at that section. Okay, and we'll need to select all of these. Well, we're going to have like 100 ridges, so we don't want to have to individually, double click on each ridge like that. So for that reason, I'm going to hit Control Z back to this stage right here. For that reason, we're going to add the bevel on right now, because it'll be very easy to add the bevel here at this stage. because we can just easily select all of these edges on this section. So again, Control B to bevel. The width will be 0.25 centimeters and with 3 sections. All right. Okay, so now what we're going to do is go back into object mode, and we might can turn off our face orientation now. We're going to add an array modifier, and we're going to give it however many ridges that we want. Okay, so let's give it 100 ridges, and you need to click merge. So if you don't click merge, what will happen is every section will have duplicate vertices. So we need to hit merge. If we go into X-ray mode, you can see there's a line here between each section. If we click on merge, those all disappear. Okay, so be sure to click on merge. Now the next thing we want to do is add a simple deform modifier, and right now it's set to twist, but we want to change that to bend, and we want to change it to bend on the z-axis. Right now it's bending on the x-axis. Change it to bend on the z-axis, and you can see at a 45-degree angle it's bending up like this. So our ridges would be on the inside. If we did 360, that's not what we want. We want our ridges on the outside. So do negative 360. Okay, and so now this is our chance to change the thickness of this. So go into edit mode if you want, and make sure that you are in X-ray mode. Make sure you have that toggled on, and then just select all of those. I'll probably do vertex select, and then you can hit G and Y. Okay, and you can adjust thickness to however thick you want it to be. All right, I'm going to hit escape and just leave it where it was. All right, and that's fine for me. Okay, now once you're happy with the thickness, you can go ahead and apply the array. Apply that one first, and then apply the simple deform modifier. And now you can see we're still in X-ray mode, and you can see there's a line right here. That means we have duplicate vertices there. So we want to go into edit mode. We want to press A to select everything. Go to mesh, merge by distance. You can see it has removed 15 vertices. That's all the vertices that were along this edge ring right here, edge loop right here. Okay, so now we have a solid piece of geometry here. Right, it's just a ring right now, a single ring, but it's going to be the bottom of our pot basically. And at this stage, what I'd like to do is in object mode, let's go ahead and click on set origin, geometry to origin. All right, so it centered everything up around the origin point, which was still here at the 3D cursor. But there is a problem that we need to fix. If we go into side view, you can see it's not quite centered on that y-axis. And to fix that, we still have our set origin menu here. Just click on bounds center. Okay, and that fixes that. So you don't have to go into side view. I'm going to go back into the top view here and Control Z to where it was at this point. Click Object, Set Origin, Geometry to Origin, and then just while you're here, change that to Bound Center. Okay, and that'll make that work correctly from the side view. All right, from the side view, go ahead and go into the side view now, and press G, Z, and 1. Okay, that'll move it up so that the bottom of what we've made so far is resting on the floor of the world, right? The floor plane of the world. I'm going to hit the period key to back out to zoom, so that this is, I don't know how to describe it. It zooms out to where everything fits on the screen nicely. Okay, and now that we've moved it up, we need to set that origin back down to the world center. Okay, we don't want, see, we moved the whole thing up. We don't want our origin here. We want our origin right on the floor. So because of that, we need to move that origin now again. So Object, Set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor. Okay, so make sure your 3D cursor is in the center of the world as well. And I think now we can probably come out of X-ray mode, at least for now. Okay, so this is, we've got this going. We've modeled our ridges basically, and now what we need to do is scale it down to the correct size. So if we look at this, you can see right now it's 81.6 centimeters, and we need it to be 15 centimeters. So what we're going to do is just come to the X here and type 15, just type 15 and hit enter. Okay, now this has scaled it and it looks very crazy right now. Now I don't know about previous versions because I've never done this in the previous version. In 3.6 I can just come here to the X, click and drag down, and it will put that scale that it put in X. Let me back out for a minute. So because I typed 15 here, it has rescaled X. The X scale has changed. So it was a 1. I'll Control Z. So when it's 81.6 here, the scale is 1. Okay, it's 81.6 in Y, the scale is 1 there in Y, and it's 2 in Z, and the scale is 1 in all of these. But when I change X to 15, it changes the scale in the X section up here. Okay, and at least in 3.6, I can just click that, drag down, and it will put that new scale in all 3 sections, which is what we want. And I just hit enter. Now I don't know if that's available in previous versions because I've never done that before. So I didn't know that you could do that. So if it doesn't work in your version of Blender that you're using, I'm going to Control Z. What you can do is type 15, come up here to X and click on it, press Control C, and then do that. You can still do this, click and drag down, and then press Control V, and then hit enter. Okay, so I don't know if you'll have to do that or not, but it's very cool that that you can do this. That's very fast. Okay, now once you've done that though, you need to be sure to press Control A and apply the scale. All right, so now the actual size of our item right now is 15 across in X, 15 across in Y, and now it's 0.368 or something in Z. Okay, press the period and it'll kind of zoom in on that for you. And now that we've got this size correctly, we can now we're ready to vertically, change the size of it vertically. So let's go into this side view here. So I'm going to press 3, and we're going to click on our object here, and let's go back into X-ray mode. And I think I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit with the plus key. Go into edit mode and vertex select mode. Just box select all of these top vertices up here. Okay, and then up here click on global and then just type 15. Okay, we're going to make it 15 centimeters tall. All right, and it's okay if it goes a little bit above here. It's because we have some height to this. Okay, and so it's giving us kind of the average, I think, of that or something. So don't worry about that. If it bothers you, you can go in here and press G, Z, and move it up or down until it's closer to what you like. But I'm just going to hit escape and go out of that. Okay. Okay, and so now that we've got this the correct height, what we want to do is go out of X-ray mode and come here about the center and press Control R. And we're going to put in our edge loops. Now this is a design choice you have to make for this tutorial. We're going to put 50 sections. Okay, we're going to divide this into 50 segments, which means that I'm going to type 59 for 59 edge loops. So it's usually one less edge loop to give you the number of sections that you want. I'm going to hit enter and then I'm going to hit escape. Okay, it's going to take the computer a minute to process that. All right, well, it was actually fairly quick that time. Okay, I'm going to roll up here so that we can look inside it. I'm going to place my mouse inside the cylinder here. I'm going to press Control R. I now have an edge loop in there. I'm going to hit 59 again, or type 59, hit enter and escape. Okay, hitting escape just places it at the original location. You have an opportunity to move them up or down, but we want them at the original location, so I hit escape. You can also right click with the mouse, I think. I don't do that because I'm not using a mouse. I'm using a pad and a pen and tablet kind of thing. So I'm just used to hitting escape instead of right clicking. Okay, so now we've got our cylinder kind of modeled here, and what we need to do now is model it, give it a bottom. So right now it's just kind of a hollow pipe. We need to give it a bottom. So let's roll this around. So we're looking at the bottom. Kind of zoom in here, go into edit mode. Let's go into face select mode up here. And let's just double click right here to get that face ring. I'm going to hold down Shift and double click on the next ring down to get that one as well. I think I may do a third one. Hold down Shift and get that next face ring as well. Okay, and then press delete to delete those faces. Go into edge select mode, and the first thing I want to do is dissolve this edge right here. So let's double click on that and press delete, but let's choose dissolve edges. Okay, so it won't affect anything, it will just remove that one edge loop, and that's going to make room for a bevel that we'll put in here in a few moments. Okay, so now I might need to zoom in a little bit better so I can, or a little bit more so I can see these edges better. I'm going to double click right there and press F to fill. That's going to put a giant face here on the bottom, and I will double click here to get that edge ring and press F to fill, and that'll put a giant face there. So we've got the bottom now. I want to roll around. I'm rolling around, okay, and going into the inside of the cylinder here, zooming in on the bottom, and we're going to put a bevel down here. So I'm just going to double click on that edge ring there, press Control B, and pull out a little bit. Okay, and I'm just pulling out until, you know, this distance here is about the same as this distance here. And that's why I dissolved that edge ring earlier, because it was about here, and I wanted to make room for this bevel. Okay, so now we're just going to back out, and so I'm giving it 3 sections, but you could give it more. You may need this model, if you're going to 3D print it, you may need it to be smoother than I'm making it. In which case you might do 5 or 7 segments for your bevel, and also you might do, instead of when I gave it 60 segments, maybe you'd be better off doing it like 150 segments. So maybe we should have done 149 edge loops there. But I'm just trying to make this where maybe more people can follow along in the tutorial. So, but if you got a strong enough computer and you need it to be, you try to 3D print it and it looks too faceted, then you probably need to crank up, put in more edge loops here vertically, and you might need to put in more sections on your bevel down there. You may even need to use like a 32 vertex circles on these when we were modeling the ridges earlier. I think this will be fine, but it just depends. You'll have to 3D, if whoever's watching this video plans on 3D printing something like this, that's a design choice you'll have to make. You'll have to print one out and see if it's too faceted looking or if it comes out fine. I don't know, because I haven't printed this. I don't actually even have a 3D printer. I used to work with one at my old job, but sometimes you would do something and come out too faceted and you'd have to go back and remodel it all. Okay, so we've got the bottom modeled in now, and what we want to do now is get our shading correct. So when we're in object mode, you can see that it's kind of faceted looking, and so what we need to do to fix that is change the shading to smooth. So in object mode, click on shade smooth. Okay, now what that does is apply a smooth shading to every face in the object when you do it in object mode. But in edit mode, you can actually face by face choose to have that particular face either smooth or flat shaded. Okay, but when we apply smooth shading, there is maybe a little bit of strangeness where these ridges meet the top here, and this looks okay down here, but there might be a little bit of strangeness as well in this area here. It doesn't look too bad, but just in case, what we'll do is go into edit mode, face select mode, select this big face at the bottom, press select, and select similar, and choose normal. So this is going to get every face that is facing in the same direction as this big face down here. And that's going to get all of the faces at the top, basically, as well as the one at the bottom. And I'm going to set those to shade flat. Okay, so that'll just ensure that we're getting flat shading on the top and bottom faces here, which are in fact flat. Okay, we're going to do the same thing to the bottom. So roll it over to the bottom, get that face there. This time you can just hit Control plus to get that next set of faces out there, and then hit Control plus again to get that next set of faces. Okay, you could also do select similar by normal as well. And then let's just do face, shade flat. So we set the whole object to shade smooth, and then we chose a few faces and set them to shade flat. Okay, so now we've got our ridges modeled, we've got our cylinder. Basically we've got a flower pot that is like it's flat, and what really remains now is to put those kind of swoopy designs on the side. So that's what we'll do next. So we're going to use a lattice modifier to add the swoopy designs on here. So let's go ahead and click on Add Lattice. It says radius, but I really think they mean size. So we're going to type, because if you type in a radius of 7.5, it should be the same size as our cylinder here, but it isn't. So I think they mean size. So if we type 15, you can see it's exactly the width of our cylinder. And we want to move this up by 7.5. So right here in the Add Object menu, you can just type 7.5 on the Z-axis. Okay. If you miss that, you can also select the lattice, press G, Z, and 7.5. All right, I'm going to hit Control Z because I had already done that. Okay, so the lattice, you get to set like a number of subdivisions in it, sort of, in different directions. And I always have to kind of play around with these to see, which direction I need the subdivisions to be in. And but I've already done this tutorial several times. Gone through this several times trying to make the tutorial, so I know that it's W. And let's go ahead and put this to 8. Okay, and that's just something you have to experiment with. I didn't automatically know that 8 was a good number for this lattice. Okay, and then we need to select the cylinder here and go to modifiers, add modifier, and let's add a lattice modifier to it. Click on object here and select the lattice. And also let's rename our cylinder. So it's really a flower pot, right? Let's double click on that and type in flower pot, or whatever you want to call it. Now select the lattice, okay? And we're going to tab into edit mode on the lattice, and then we're going to select this first edge, the second one up. So the first one is actually here on the bottom, and we're going to go skip these two and then get the next one. Hold down Shift and box select that. Press S to scale, but you can see it scaling also in the Z direction. We don't want that, so press Shift Z to cancel out the Z scale. Okay, and then just pull out until you like how far out it's coming. Okay, and what we're going to do now, and I wouldn't normally slide things on the lattice, this way, but on this particular model, I don't think it's really an issue, and it gives us the look we're looking for. So we're going to select these, this group of vertices on the lattice. Press G and Z, and then just pull it down until we get kind of a nice tight squeeze right there, and then we'll get this group and press G, Z, and pull down as well. Okay, and we can pull this back up, G, Z, so that the top is more like 15 centimeters tall. But if you want to change the height, you can do that with the lattice. As a matter of fact, that looks pretty good at 14. Okay, so one reason you might not want to do things vertically on your lattice like that is you're actually going to be stretching and scrunching the faces vertically. So now these faces here, they're going to be very stretched, and these will be scrunched, and so forth. But I just think on this particular model, I don't think it's going to be a real issue because where the faces are stretched is a straight place. So I don't think that's going to be a real problem. Okay, so that's looking good. I actually kind of like that at 14 centimeters tall. And you can just tab out of that, and you can actually hide the lattice. Okay, and so now we've got the little swoopy parts in. And what we want to do now is create that kind of clay material. Actually, before we move on to creating the materials, I want to just say a word about the lattice modifier. So you could apply it. That's one option for you. Okay, once you apply it, you can't make any more changes. Your model is permanently changed, okay? And here's what I was talking about. These faces got stretched, and these got scrunched, where we squeezed parts of the lattice together vertically, or where we pulled them apart vertically. So Like I said, on this particular model, I don't think it's a real problem. But anyway, you could apply it, and then your model is done. If you're going to do that, you might want to save it before you apply it, and then save a separate file after you apply it. You know, that's one option. I'm going to Control Z back to where we have the lattice modifier again. Another option for you is simply to leave it. Save your file with that lattice modifier on there. You can turn it off if you want to turn it off. You can turn it on to get back to your model where it's been applied, right? And let's say you want to 3D print this flower pot. Well, you can go to File, Export it as an STL, for instance, and you have an option in here to apply modifiers. So, and you want to do selection only, typically. Okay, so if you choose apply modifiers here, the STL file is going to be as though you had applied the modifier here. So you don't have to apply the modifier in your Blender file. You get a chance to apply it in the exported file. Okay, so that's what I would probably do, is just save it like this with the lattice modifier in place, and then if I need to export this, export with the apply modifiers ticked, you know, check mark there, and the apply modifiers checkbox. So that's probably what I would do. So I just wanted to kind of go over that before we move on to creating the materials. Okay, so now we want to create that kind of clay material. Let's go into our shading tab. We'll select the vase and hit the period key to kind of zoom out, and we'll click on new. And now we've got a new material. First we'll change the color. Let's give it a hue of 0.04, a saturation of 0.8, and let's give it a value of 0.3. Now I arrived at those values really by just moving this around until I found a color I liked, and it turned out that it had a hue of 0.04, saturation around 0.8, and a value of about 0.3. So that was experimentation on my part, not something I just looked at and immediately knew that's what the color should be. And let's also switch to the rendered mode. I think it'll look a little better in rendered. And let's come here to the world tab. You probably will get better results if you click here and apply an environment texture. You might not have an environment texture, which is an HDR file. So I'm going to click open. I've got several of these on my computer. I'm going to use this nature reserve forest one, and I've just got a 1K image, but you could get a much more high def image if you want. You could get a 2K or 4K. Now I get my HDRs mostly from polyhaven.com. I'll leave a link in the description of the video where you can get this particular one, but you can pick any one you want. And they might have some paid items there, I don't know, but they definitely have a lot of free ones to choose from. So check that out. And it just gives it a lot more realistic lighting, okay? Because it's as though now that this pot is sitting in the middle of this forest, okay? So it's getting lighting from the sky, lighting from the trees, and all of that. So it just adds a really nice touch to it. Now also I'm going to go ahead and grab the light, which is in here somewhere, I think. And we'll turn that into a sun, and we'll move it out to the side here, maybe change the angle of it a little bit. Okay, and also we'll turn it down. So it kept that value of 1,000 from the original light, but with a sun you just probably need like between 2 and maybe 10 depending on your situation. So I'm gonna give it a value of 3. Okay, so this is the lighting here, and also we'll go back to this tab here. Let's turn on ambient occlusion, and let's turn on I don't know if screen space reflections changes anything if you don't have a very reflective material. Just in case it does, I usually turn that on out of habit. Come to shadows, and we'll increase the cube size and the cascade size and activate high bit depth. Okay, and we'll add a little plane here, and let's switch to rendered mode even over here. We'll add a little plane just to give it something to sit on and cast a shadow onto, but you don't have to do that. Okay, so I'm not really setting up a scene for a render, but just something for us to look at here. Kind of, we're now winding down this tutorial. Let's go back to the clay material, go back to the shading tab here, and let's turn down the specular on that. I don't think clay is quite that specular, and maybe 0.2, 0.3. Let's do let's do a 0.25 on the specular, and let's bump up that roughness, maybe 0.65 or 7 maybe. Okay, and I think that's looking more like clay. You could also add a little texture to it if you would like, although that looks pretty good already. But you could add a little texture. Just come to a texture, noise texture, and then also add a vector bump map. Go to add vector bump to get a bump map there. Feed the color into the height, and then feed the normal into the normal of the material. Okay, right now the scale is too small. Let's bump that up to like maybe 350 or so, maybe 400. Okay, and then the strength is way too strong. Let's put that at maybe 0.1. Okay, so that just gives this kind of little roughness to it. Okay, and might help add a little bit of realism to it, even here in Eevee. Okay, so that's our clay material. We've got some basic, very basic lighting set up on it. All right, so we've got the clay material set up, and that's pretty much it. We are done with this flower pot. Now, if you have any questions about anything I've done in this video, please feel free to leave a comment, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you might have. Also, I know everything about social media these days is a little wacky, but if you have a Facebook account or if you have a Twitter account already and you actually use those sites, if you want to, you can follow me over on Twitter or over on Facebook. So I'll leave links to that also below the video. All right, I want to thank all of you for watching, and I hope to see all of you in future videos.